My name is Michael Thomas, and I'm an individual with a disability. I'm legally blind, and so a lot of things that I talk about is not, yes, you can find them in the literature and all that, but a lot of things I talk about is also life experience. I experienced it myself. One of the reasons I got into this area is because of like a lot of you out there probably being frustrated with the system, okay? And so I decided, well, what can I do to, help myself and help others? So here I am. As Steve said, I've been with Disability Rights California, and we just figured out it'll be, excuse me, when they first hired me, I thought it was a joke because I was hired on April Fool's Day. So as of April 1st, I will have been at Disability Rights California for 13 years. And most of my career has been about helping those of us with disabilities understand and navigate the Social Security system, and also when we want to go back to work and not feel that we just have to rely on the Social Security benefits. So my whole career has been about helping those of us with disabilities go back to work. I do a lot of things that Steve said with the Ticket to Work program through Social Security, which help individuals go back to work. Also, I do a lot of employment work through Title I of the ADA as far as reasonable accommodations and rights of people with disabilities to work, a lot of employment discrimination. And as he also says, I do a lot of work with the Department of Rehabilitation, helping individuals get the services they need to return to work. So my whole thing is about helping us know the laws, rules, and regulations to go back to work. Because as you guys probably know, there's a lot of misinformation out there. And we can get in some trouble real quick by not knowing the laws, rules, and regulations. So that's what we try to do, and that's why I like coming out to try to clear up some of that information. Now, I did have a few handouts for you guys, and you guys have those handouts, but I'm the type of person, if I really don't really try to read those handouts while the presentation, because it's just going to confuse you. Basically, I give handouts so that once you leave here, you have some material with you to be a guide. But usually, I talk about everything that's in those handouts. One way or the other, I'll talk about them. And if I don't, a lot of you guys are going to ask questions that's going to cover everything anyway. Okay? So, we're jumping right into the presentation. One of the things Steve wanted me to talk about is about how to apply for benefits and when individuals should apply for benefits. Okay. With Disability Rights California, we really don't provide direct advocacy services and helping a person apply for benefits, but we will tell you what the laws, rules, and regulations is about applying for benefits. And we do have handouts and different information on our website that can help you with that. So one of the handouts that you have is entitled Applying for Benefits, Applying for Disability Benefits. So I'm just going to go through that real quick as far as what Social Security looks at when a person is applying for benefits. Now, most times when a person applies for benefits, usually what happens, they say, well, I'm applying for Social Security benefits. But actually what happens in the Social Security Administration, they administer different programs for people with disability, retirement benefits, all different types of benefits. But usually what we work with is those benefits that's geared toward individuals with disabilities. And usually there's a lot of confusion on those benefits because there are two separate benefits and there are two sets of rules for each program. And what happens most of the time is, you may get rules for one program, that don't apply to the other program, or vice versa, and then it can get very confusing. So what we try to do is try to diminish that confusion. The Social Security Administration administers 2 programs for people with disabilities. One is Supplemental Security Income, or the SSI program, and the other one is Social Security Disability Insurance. Now, the SSI program is a need-based program. A person can get SSI benefit based on, they could be either 65 years or older and do not have a disability. They can have a disability, or they can be determined blind by the Social Security Administration. And if you are eligible for the SSI benefits, you also can get Medi-Cal coverage with that, which can also entitle you to in-home support services and other programs under Medi-Cal. Now, the other program is the Social Security Disability Insurance Program. Now, it's not a need-based program. It's an entitlement program that you pay for through employment. You know, when you go work, and I always say before I knew what was going on, I always used to wonder who was that little FICA guy taking money out of my check every month. That's part of that money goes to the Social Security Trust Fund for disability in case the worker becomes disabled before full retirement age. Also under the Social Security disability system, a dependent child with a disability up to age 22 can get benefits off their parents' record if they had the disability before age 22. Now, they can be over age 22 and still get benefits off of their parents' record who may have worked and paid into the system, but they must have had the disability before age 22, okay? And the parent must be either have a disability, have reached full retirement age and retired from the workforce, or is deceased. So their dependent child who had a disability before age 22 can get those benefits from the Social Security system. So one is based on work and paying into the system, and the SSI system is based on a need-based system, and the person has limited income and limited resources. Pretty much, an individual can't have over $2,000 of money in resources to be eligible for the SSI program. And as for the disabled couple, where each person has a disability, they can't have more than $3,000 a month. So it's a need-based program, and there's a lot of rules and regulations that come with that program. Then the SSDI program, on the other hand, there's not a lot of rules because it's an entitlement program that you paid for through working and them taking taxes out the system. So the first thing that Social Security looks at to determine if a person is eligible for either benefit is they look at the medical definition. Does the person meet Social Security's medical definition of disability? Now, on the SSI system, you have to meet a medical definition and a non-medical definition that we'll talk about in a second. But on the Social Security disability, you only have to meet the medical definition, okay? And a lot of times, individuals will come to us and they'll say, well, my doctor is saying that I have a disability, or the Department of Rehabilitation say I have a disability, or some other entity has said that I have a disability. And that may be fine and good, but in order to get benefits from the Social Security Administration, whether it's SSI, SSDI, you have to meet the medical definition of the Social Security Administration. So even though there's a lot of agencies in the government, whether public, private, have definition for disabilities, only the Social Security definition of disability is going to qualify an individual for benefits from that program. So what is the definition of disability? Now, I broke the definition of disability down into 2 parts and also a definition for blindness. Because Social Security, SSI has a definition for a disability as far as a child. What is a disabled child? And a disabled child could be an individual from age 0 to 18 who has a mental or physical impairment that presents a significant marked functional limitation that has lasted for 12 months, is expected to last for 12 months, or to end in death. And that marked limitation is compared to another child without a disability who's the same age, okay? So a child is basic for SSI is looked upon as their functional ability. Now, adult with a disability is an individual over 18, okay, and who has a mental or physical impairment, which an impairment severely limits their ability to do substantial gainful activity. That's just Social Security's big term for four-letter word called work. Once you reach age 18, you're being evaluated on whether or not your disability prevents you from working. And the disability is lasted for 12 months, is expected to last for 12 months, or to end in death. Now, the definition didn't say that you can't work, but and we'll talk about it in a little bit, there's a amount that Social Security looks at as whether you can work or not to qualify for the benefits. And the definition of blindness is an individual who has a visual acuity of 20/200 in their best eye with correction. That's with glasses, contacts, or whatever. Your visual acuity is not more than 20/200. Or your peripheral vision is 20 degrees or less. Or the statutes say less than 20 degrees. So if you meet either one of those, then you meet the statutory definition of blindness. And that's kind of key because when you're looking at other aspects of the benefits, there are some things in the law that's maybe a little more advantageous to those of us who meet that definition of blindness. And that's basically because a lot of things for us may cost more because of we use more technology in a lot of cases. So those are the definitions of disability and blindness, okay, as far as the SSI system is concerned. But that definition also is the same definition that they're going to look at even if if you paid enough into the system to get SSDI, you still must meet that same medical definition of disability or blindness, okay? So those are the definitions. Now, once a child, say on SSI, a child can still be, Social Security still considers a person a child under SSI even if they're over 18, if that individual is still taking high school courses. They are considered a child up to age 22. So an individual could be over 18, but they're still taking, high school courses. SSI still looks at them as a child, and they come under the child definition, and it's based on their functional ability, then whether or not they can go to work. Now, if the child is not in high school or is going toward graduation, at age 17, we usually look at doing what's called age 18 redetermination. And what that means is at age 18, Social Security, SSI is now going to look at that person as an adult instead of a child. So they may have gotten the SSI benefits as a child because they looked at the functional ability based on a child without a disability. Now at age 18, they have to be reevaluated under the adult definition. So now they're going to look to see if the disability severely limits the person from working. And Social Security uses, as I said before, the big term, substantial gainful activity. That's their term for work. And legally, what that is if you do any mental or physical work for pay or profit. That's substantial work. And Social Security always puts a dollar amount on that to determine what that is. So basically, as of January 1st, 2016, if you're a person with a disability, and if your gross earnings, that's before they take out taxes and everything, if your gross earnings is more than $1,130, if you have $1,130, then you're doing substantial work if you can make over that, even if you have a disability. So even if you have a disability and you work and you make over $1,130, when you're trying to apply for SSI, they're going to say you have too much income. Okay? Now there are some things where we as advocates can use to still, have the person eligible, so that the person can get eligible. And we'll talk about that in a second when I start talking about when you go to work, or some things you can use. Some of the work incentives that I'll talk about later, they can be used in the eligibility process. So we can use those to reduce the income below that 1130. Now, an individual who meets the statutory definition of blindness that I talked about, there's no such thing as an SGA requirement for them. So an individual who's blind, they don't have to worry about how much they make. Work is not an issue. It's that they meet the definition of blindness. That's just under the SSI system. Under the SSDI system, they still have to meet the SGA level, and the SGA level for a person who's blind is $1,820 under the SSDI system. But there is no SGA under the SSI system for a person who's blind. Okay? So those are things that you look at as far as the medical definition, and one area of non-medical, some other things on the non-medical for the SSI system. Remember, you don't have to worry about non-medical under the SSDI system. Is under SSI, you must also be a U.S. citizen. As I said, you have limited income, limited resources. Your living arrangements can affect whether or not you are eligible for SSI. There's, and a lot of you out there might see this, what they call deeming. That's where where SSI counts a portion of, say, parent to child deeming, a portion of the parent's income as available to the child. So you may have a child with a disability, and Social Security, SSI keep telling you that the child can't get SSI. That's because they're deeming a portion of your income. Now, I will say this, and I say this very honestly, they may not be doing the formula right, and the child may be entitled to benefits, maybe not the whole benefit amount, but they may be entitled to SSI. And if, under the law, if they're entitled to $1 in SSI, they're entitled to full scope, no-cost Medi-Cal coverage. So a lot of times, parents are told that, oh, you make too much money a year for your child to be eligible. But sometimes they don't work the deeming formula right. So on our website, we have a publication that talks about the deeming process, and it shows you how the Social Security Administration is supposed to calculate that to see if the child is eligible, okay? So there are some things that can affect the eligibility that, outside of the medical definition. Now, if you feel that, you may meet that definition, or your child may meet that definition and meet those medical and non-medical requirements, there's nothing, my dad used to say, nothing be a failure but a try. So applying for the benefits, if you feel you meet that definition, matter of fact, Social Security encourages you, if you feel that you meet those definitions, apply for the benefits, okay? And even if you apply for the benefits and you're denied, that denial letter will tell you why they denied the benefits, and there's different individuals out there who could help you as far as knowing, challenging that denial and getting the information you need to get approved as far as the benefits are concerned. So there are I listed on the handout a few ways that you can apply. You can do it over the telephone by calling their 800 number, which is 1-800-772-1213. And you can apply over the phone. They'll set an appointment up with your local Social Security office. They'll give you a time to come in to fill out the application. Or you can go online and apply online. A lot of people tell us they have problems applying for it online because sometimes you can answer a question and then it'll just lock you out the whole system. Or you can go into the local office. What we suggest is that you apply by phone by calling the 800 number. And the reason we do that is because once you call that 800 number, you are establishing under the law what's called your protective filing date. That means no matter how long it takes you to be awarded benefits, the SSI system has to retroactively pay you back to the date that you first contacted Social Security. Because under law, what they're saying, say if it takes a year or 2 or 3, and some of you guys may know it can take longer than that. But what Social Security is, what the law is saying is that person was disabled. Michael was disabled when he first called you in 2010. Because you didn't make the decision until 2013, you can't penalize him for that. He was disabled back in 2010, so you have to pay him for the whole time. So you can get a retroactive payment. So by calling the 800 number, you establish that retroactive date, okay? And the best way is to record that date in this system. Because when you call the 800 number, most of the time at the 800 number, those are not people who are dealing with clients coming in and out of the office. They're just taking information and putting it into the database, okay? So if you think you meet those medical and non-medical requirements, we strongly encourage you to apply for the benefits, okay? So once you apply for the benefits and you start receiving the benefits, the next process, which I do a lot, is what I deal with people with. I want to go back to work, or can I work and still get my SSI? Or can I work and still get my SSDI? So I'm going to talk about SSI first. And that's, you got one of your handouts, one of our publications that we put together, talks about employment support and work incentives under Title 16, which is the SSI program. Okay? And most of the time we do get calls and individuals ask us, what happened to my SSI when I go back to work? Because remember, there's a lot of rules in these systems, and sometimes even some of our friends and colleagues at the Social Security Administration, they may not understand the rules, you know, and they may give you some misinformation as far as if you go back to work, how much can you make and still keep your SSI benefits, okay? Now, our objective is not to keep you on the SSI benefits, but as you transition to work, is to have that, you know, have that safety net there as you transition to work, because basically my objective is to get the person to where they're working, making enough income to move off the system. And that's what the work incentives were put into the law to do. Matter of fact, the law specifically states these work incentives were put into the law to, quote unquote, significantly reduce or eliminate dependency on the public benefit. So they want people to go back to work, and they put these work incentives in the law to help you. Now, a lot of people don't understand them, and a lot of times Social Security or this SSI claims reps or some of the claims reps may not do the things that they're supposed to do in time, and then the person may get a letter about an overpayment or something, then they'd be like, well, why am I gonna work if all I'm gonna do is get overpayments and get in debt? And so that's where we try to come in and try to explain things to individuals on how they can go back to work and try to help them from getting into those situations. So under the SSI system, when a person goes to work, they must calculate what's called accountable income. Now, in the state of California, the SSI check is made up of two sources of money. One is from the federal government. It's called the federal benefit rate. This year, the federal government puts into every SSI check. This is, if you don't have any overpayments or some of your living arrangements, some of those other things that can reduce. So I'm just going to talk about, let's just say you're entitled to the full SSI check. So under the federal government, in all 50 states and all U.S. territories, the federal government puts in $733 a month into a SSI check. Now, there's a provision in the law called maintenance of effort, and what that means is each state can decide to supplement that $733 up to a higher amount if they so choose in their state. The state of California does supplement that check. Some states that I've worked in before and states that I'm from, they don't supplement. So a person only gets $733. In California, if you're a person with a disability other than blindness, they supplement your $733 by $156.40. So your total SSI check could be $889.40. If you're an individual who is blind, they supplement it by $211.40. So your total SSI check could be $944.40. So it's always better to go back to work because the laws are set up so that you can keep some or all of your SSI benefits as you transition to work. And as I said before, in the state of California, if you're entitled to $1 in SSI, you're entitled to full scope, no cost Medi-Cal coverage, okay? So once the person goes back to work, and this doesn't happen all the time, and then some of you guys may have seen that every time you're on SSI and you go to work, every month they send you a letter talking about how the amount of your check went up or it went down, because they are supposed to work this formula every month. So the formula allows for some exclusions of income, okay? So they look at your gross amount. Social Security does everything based on your gross before they take out taxes, and it's a monthly accounting system. So what would happen is they're going to implement this, what we call the accountable income calculation, to see how much of your earnings would count against your SSI check. That means how much would it reduce the SSI check. Now, the example that I did in that handout is based on a person, working, and they get a gross amount of income of $1,000 a month. And we go through and work that formula. Now, basically, this formula is just the basic formula, but there are some other things I'll talk about in a second that can be also disregarded in that formula, where a person can earn even more. So that basic formula, you take the gross earnings, you subtract what they call a general income exclusion. That's the first $20 of any income, Social Security discounts it. So from that $1,000, you subtract 20, they're only going to look at $980. So then the law says they must discount the next $65, which is called an earned income exclusion. So that leaves what they're looking at is $915, okay? Another disregard is called 50%, what we call a 50% disregard, because for every $2 the person on SSI earns, after that $85 exclusion, SSI takes away $1. So we divide that by 50. I think we come out with if I remember my math right, and I was never a good math student, so bear with me if I get it wrong, it's $457.50. The reason I remember that because I've been doing this for long. And I use the same example because then I don't have to remember new numbers. But so what would happen there if you were a person had a disability other than blindness, you subtract that $457.50 from the $889.40. So you still get an SSI check, okay? And I think it's about $431 or something like that. Okay, and as you can see, if you're an individual who are blind, that you get a little bit more, like $480 some. But it's better to work because now your total income is over $1,000 a month, because you keep the money you got from working, plus the $430 some from SSI, plus you still got your Medi-Cal coverage. So we always encourage people to work, because work, you're going to come out with better income than that. Now, there's a point in SSI where we call it the break-even point. It's the point at where the amount you can earn per month, gross amount you can earn per month, and your accountable income will be $889.40. Therefore, you wouldn't be eligible for SSI. That break-even point, I don't have it on that. I'm gonna add that to the publication, but that break-even point is, I think it's $1,863, which is 2 times $889.40 plus $85. So that's how much a person on SSI can earn before they lose their full SSI check. Now, some people at Social Security, or some of your friends, or some people may say, oh, you can only earn $85 on SSI. Or you're on SSI, you can't go back to work because you're going to lose your full SSI. Well, I always say, okay, if you give me a choice of having $889.40 a month or $1,863 a month, which one do you think I'm going to choose? Yeah. So it's best, even if I don't have the SSI check, I have double the income that I would have had on SSI. Plus, now, one of the things I said is, if you get $1 SSI, you still have full scope Medi-Cal. But at that break-even point, you don't have any SSI. However, there's a provision that in the Social Security Administration called Section 1619B, which says that if you lose your SSI cash benefits because of employment, because of your earnings, you're still entitled to full scope, no cost Medi-Cal up to a state threshold amount. And I was looking at the publication before I came over here, and we forgot, we didn't change the state threshold amount, but it's like $37,000 a year. You can make up to that and still have your Medi-Cal coverage. And if you have extra medical costs, say if you have a personal attendant or some other extra, your threshold level can even be higher than that. So even if you're making more money, you still can stay on the Medi-Cal system. Also, with sections with 250% California Working Disabled program, which came about through the Ticket to Work program, you can purchase Medi-Cal through the state of California by paying a premium from about $20 to $120 based on your earnings, and still have Medi-Cal coverage up to about $56,000 a year. So it's advantageous for you to work. There's a lot of things out there that we as advocates have done over the years to try to, it's not what we wanted. We would like the system to be a whole lot better, to encourage more people to go to work. But as my dad say, you know, a little bit of something is better than a whole lot of nothing, okay? So this is what we have, and this is what we want to do now, and there are some other things we'll talk about in a little bit that's in the law now that's going to even help that more. So it is always advantageous to work. Also, under the SSI system, you have other disregards that you can take. There's something called a blind work expense that a blind person can take. It's expenses that the blind person incurred that they pay for out of their pocket. That can be reduced in this formula. So you can make even more than the $1,863. Or there's something called impairment-related work expenses. These are expenses for goods or items that you pay for because of your impairment. You need them to help you work. And without them, you couldn't work. They will let you disregard the cost of that. I have a friend who's on the SSI, and she works, and so she's a wheelchair user. And her battery went out on her wheelchair, and she had to pay for that battery. Had to buy a battery, and that battery is, you know, like $400. So instead of that's an expense to her. So even though she made more, because she had more in expenses, they didn't count that as earnings. And so she could make more and still keep her full SSI check. So what we try to do is work with you to show you how these different work incentives work that can encourage you to go back to work, okay? And not just pull the rug from under you, but we can slowly graduate you into the workforce as you transition to the workforce. Like Steve said in the presentation next month, these are some things that can help as you do that transition, okay? Instead of pulling all your medical coverage and your benefits from on you at one time. There's also a program called a Plan for Achieving Self-Support, or a PASS plan. And what the PASS plan does, you have to have income other than SSI. So if you're working, and that little formula we went through and that $457 and stuff, now what we could do is set that into a PASS plan to achieve a certain vocational goal, or to, I've helped people set up a PASS plan to, buy a computer for their job, or a vehicle. Things that you need that's gonna help you work. It's a part of your vocational goal. So to allow you, instead of reducing that from your SSI check, you set it in a separate bank account and you pay for things out of that account. Social Security will let you keep the full SSI check, and instead of taking that money from you, they'll let you have that to reach a vocational goal. Now, and a lot of times we as advocates out there, we can sit down with you, and there's a project called the Work Incentive Plan Assistance Project. They can help you put PASS plans together. We can, the advocates at Disability Rights California, we can do that. And the PASS plan can be developed for any work goal that you want. You can even write a PASS plan. I had a person, I'm telling you about this person who wrote a PASS plan. He was receiving SSI, and because you can receive SSI and SSDI, because as you work, you're paying into the SSDI system, and you can be entitled to SSDI money. Now, what he did was set that SSDI money aside in a PASS plan, and his vocational goal was to be a college instructor. So every month, he would put the SSDI money into a PASS account. They would replenish that through his SSI system, so he still had money to live on. And out of that PASS plan, he paid for his tuition at Cal State Sacramento, paid for his books, paid for his cap and gown when he graduated, paid for the paper he wrote his master's degree on, and he got a master's degree from Cal State Sacramento. Can anybody guess who that was?
You.
Me. So see, like I say, I'll tell you these things not just because that they're out there. These things I've used, all these work incentives I'm telling you about, I've used them, okay? So it's always advantageous to work. There are some things in the law that can help you, okay? Now, the Social Security disability system, as I said, when you're working, you pay into that, or your parents are paid into you and you're getting benefits off of that. The system is a lot easier because you don't have to worry about any non-medical requirements. All you have to do is meet the medical requirements, and they're only concerned about one thing, is when you go back to work, how much you're making. So they're not concerned about how much resources you have. They're not concerned about where you live and all that. All they're concerned about is when you go back to work, do you make over the SGA amount? That's all they're concerned about. I always say, under the SSI system, if you go out here to Thunder Valley and you win big, you're not gonna get your SSI check. That's called unearned income. It's gonna count dollar for dollar and reduce your SSI check. But if you receive SSDI check, you can win $1 million. It's not gonna affect your SSDI check. You still gonna get your full benefit check because they're not concerned with unearned income. They're only concerned is when you go back to work and how much you make. And there again come our old friend that substantial gain for activity amount, where if you're a person with disability other than blindness, You can make $1,130 a month and still keep your full SSDI check. If you're blind, you can make up to $1,820 a month and keep your full SSDI check. However, when you go back to work, they give you what's called a 9-month trial work period to test your ability to work. During those 9 months, and those 9 months don't have to be back to back. It's just 9 months over a 5-year period to test your ability to work. And while you're working, they don't care how much money you make. They're still gonna let you keep your SSDI check, okay? Now, after those 9 months are up, and if you work and you make over that 1130 or that 1820, now things can happen and you may lose your SSDI check. However, you still have your friend in impairment-related work expenses. You have what they call a subsidy, and that's if my employer, Disability Rights California, paid for something for me because of my disability, which allowed me to work, then they wouldn't count that as income to me. Okay, so that means I can make more than my 1820 and still get my full SSDI check. Or if the Department of Rehab bought some equipment or something for me, they would take the price of that, you know, and they could say, hey, well, actually, you know, he didn't make this $2,200 a month. He made, you know, once we deduct this, he only made $1,800, and that's below the 1820. I still keep my full SSDI check. So there's a lot of little work incentives in the law on both programs that can help you go back to work and also help you keep your medical coverage, because under the SSDI system, you can get Medicare coverage, which is the federal medical program. But once you go back to work, it used to be in the past you would lose your Medicare coverage after about, I think it was 36 months. But as a Ticket to Work program, we got that extended from 36 months to 93 months, which is nearly 8 years, that you still have your medical coverage. And then you can buy into, if you don't want to pay that premium for Medicare, you can buy into the Medi-Cal program, on the 250% working disabled program. So there are some things out there that can help you when you go back to work on both of those programs. And you can also set up, like I said before, I set up my PASS plan with SSDI money, okay? So you can set up a PASS plan under that too. Also, if you receive SSI or SSDI, there are things in the law that help you if you want to start your own business or you're an independent contractor. There are things in the law that allows you to work and make money and still keep your benefits as you transition to a point where the object is to get you to making so much money that you are not going to be on the system, and you don't even want to be on the system, because you're going to, you know, why would you want to go back to $889 if you're making over $5,000 a month or $3,000 a month? I have clients that are making over, they work for different places, private sector, for the state, and they're making over $3,000 a month, and they get their full benefits, okay? But the thing is, there are advocates out there that know these laws, rules, and regulations that will work with you to help you so that you don't get in trouble with those programs, okay? So that's, you know, because I want to save time for as many questions as we can get in. But under both systems, that's basically what I wanted to share tonight, is that you guys, that don't be afraid to work, because there are things out there that can help you. There are people like myself and other advocates out there that do this every day, dealing with those laws, rules, and regulations, helping people every day to go back to work. And use us as a resource to help you, because my goal is to help you make your life better, okay? And, you know, so that, I just have this thing that those of us with disabilities, we should be able to live the American dream just like everybody else, okay? And just because we have a disability doesn't mean that we shouldn't have opportunities. And that's what I'm about, opportunities. Now, I can't get you a job, I can't have anybody hire you or whatever, but my thing is give you the opportunities to get the skills that you need so that you can go back to work, and give you the supports while you're working so that you can continue to work to make your life better. And one of the programs, as Steve mentioned earlier, that I do is with the Client Assistance Program and the Department of Rehabilitation. The Department of Rehabilitation is there to help those of us with disabilities get the services and things that we need to help us go back to work, maintain employment, to obtain employment, and to maintain employment. And what we do as we call ourselves CAP advocates, what we do, our mission and what we mandated by the government to do is make sure that the Department of Rehabilitation follow the laws, rules, and regulations. We're out there to protect your rights as you're going to these systems to get the skills that you need so that you can go back to work, okay? So like I said, we do have the CAP program there, and if you're a person who's dealing with the Department of Rehabilitation and you're having issues or problems with them, or even if you're not having issues or problems, we hope you're not, but even if you just don't understand some of the things they may be telling you or some of the rules and regulations, you can call us at the Client Assistance Program, and we'll educate you on what's going on, what your rights are, what you can and can't do as far as these systems is concerned. Because we know a lot of these systems out here are very complicated, and most of us, we just don't receive benefits from one system, okay? Because you guys just can imagine if some of the rules I've talked about with SSI and SSDI, what if you get both? You gotta deal with both sets of rules at the same time. And what you're usually not told by the Social Security Administration is that if you're getting both benefits, guess what? You have two different counselors. So you may do everything right and report your earnings to one side, but they don't talk to you. They don't share the information. So if you get both benefits, you have to report your earnings to both counselors. Because if you don't, you're going to be in trouble on one side, but then you're going to say to me, well, I reported it to Social Security. And then we're going to find out, well, it was reported to your SSI claims rep and not the SSDI claims rep, which deals with a whole different set of rules. So that's what we try to be there to help clients do that. So, and going back to work, it's not an easy thing to do. It is complicated, because it is complicated. So you need to look for those resources out there. And I think Steve is going to talk about one at the end that can help you as far as help you navigate this system. I used to do a training called, well, I used to do two. One I used to call it Demystifying Social Security, and the other one is Navigating in the Social Security System. Because Social Security, is just like, a boat going through the ocean. There's a lot of little things you might hit, and that could capsize the boat, so we try to help you navigate through that system. So that's basically a snapshot of going back to work and how and some of the things Social Security require for you to be eligible for the benefits. Now, one of the things Steve was talking about earlier, and I alluded to, is it's a program that was started. It's called, and some of you guys may have heard of it, it's called Achieving a Better Life Experience, or the ABLE Act, okay? Now, what the ABLE Act is going to do, now, Governor Brown, the law passed in 2014 through the federal government, and President Obama signed it. So it's been law since 2014, but what's going to happen is each state is going to have to set up ABLE accounts and how that state is going to operate it. The state of California, last October, both houses, the Assembly and the Senate, passed the ABLE Act in California, and Governor Brown signed it on October 11th. So California does have the ABLE Act. What it did was set up what's called the ABLE Act Trust Fund. And what it does is now they're putting the officers together, well, they put the officers together, and now they're going to come up with the rules and the regulations and where you go to start the account and all of that to enact the federal ABLE Act in the state of California. Now, what the ABLE Act is going to do, earlier I said on the SSI you can only have $2,000 in resources a month if you're single, and $3,000 if you're a couple. What the ABLE Act is going to do is they're going to raise that resource limit. That resource limit is going to be raised to $100,000. Where once you set up an ABLE account, you can have resources up to $100,000 in that account, and it will not affect your SSI check at all. And it will not affect your Medi-Cal. You can be able to, different people can contribute to the ABLE account. Say if I set up an ABLE account, different people, my lovely wife can contribute to my ABLE account. Friends can give me money in my ABLE account. And I can use that money and I can spend it on different things. Anything from transportation to housing to education, personal care services, to pay people to manage my money. Anything that I need as a person with disability, okay? My medical costs and all of that. And none of this stuff will count against my SSI. I'm still eligible for my SSI. I'll still be eligible for the SSI benefits and other benefits that I might be entitled to, okay? It's not going to say, oh, you got too much resources, so now you can't have your SSI. That's what the ABLE account is going to do. People are going to be able to contribute up to the gift tax amount in the federal government, where a person can donate to you a certain amount. Last year there was $14,000. I think this year it's probably gone up a little bit. But you can contribute that to the account for the person and the person has to have a disability, be receiving SSI, be eligible for SSI, SSDI. And here's one caveat with the ABLE program, because they had to put some kind of cutoff in it. You had to have your disability before age 26, okay? So they had to put a cutoff on it. And so at first we were trying to get it for anybody. It doesn't matter when you had your disability, but then Congress was saying, hey, well, it's gonna cost the system too much money, so they put a cap on it. So if you had a disability before age 26, once California gets all this mechanism in place, you'll be able to set up an ABLE account. And in that account, you can keep resources in that up to $100,000, and it will not affect your SSI check. You can use that ABLE account to help you go to school, help you pay for your housing, your transportation, all types of different things to achieve a better life experience, so that you won't lose your SSI just because there are other things that you're trying to do in your life. Here's one of the good things about the ABLE account. I said $100,000. Actually, if you're over $100,000, you're actually really not going to lose your SSI. It's just going to be suspended until you get your resources back to $100,000. So it'll say, like if you have $105,000 in there, they'll say, okay, well, we're going to suspend it till you get it back to 100, and then we'll give you the check back. So I'll just, I'm going to pick on her because she's here with me tonight. I give my wife $5,000. Well, I know she can spend $5,000 quick. So I'll be back within the $100,000 and still have my SSI check. I'm so happy she's laughing. And even if you are over the $100,000 and your SSI is suspended, guess what? You don't lose your Medi-Cal regardless of how much in the account. You're always going to keep your Medi-Cal coverage. Okay. Now, the only thing that's going to happen is, like, unfortunately, if they call it a qualified beneficiary. That's the person with a disability who owns the account. If that person passes away and there's money in that account, the first people who has dibs on that account is the state Medi-Cal system to get their money back that they paid for your Medi-Cal. Now, after they take their money back, whoever that you've designated for the account, that money will go to them. But the state has first dibs on that account. So the ABLE account is going to allow us to do even more than some of the Social Security work incentives. And get this, you can use the work incentives to go back to work, and that money that you earn, you can put it in the ABLE account. It'll never count against your SSI check. Okay? So those are things that's going to help us as people with disabilities get the training, get the skills, get the things that we need, to help us to go back to work. So I think I know it's very exciting, and we've been pushing for these things for years, and some of us just so happy it happened because we were like, you know, it's like pushing that rock up a hill, but if you stop pushing it, it's gonna roll back over you, so we keep pushing it. And we trying to get even better work incentives in the laws for all of us that's out there. So I tell you what, I'm gonna stop talking, okay? And we can, you know, you guys can ask questions, and I'll do my best to answer them. If I can't answer them, I'll tell you ask Steve. Okay, the question is, as soon as any state opens up a ABLE account, anyone can take advantage of it, whether it's California or wherever. Now, that's true if that state has an agreement with the other state. So if say if New York has set up ABLE accounts and their ABLE accounts are up and running, if they have agreement with California, because every state don't have to set up an ABLE account, but they have to have agreement with a state that does have an ABLE account. So even if another state, you're right, if another state has it and California has agreement with that state, you can go ahead on and do that. Okay, the question is about personal advocacy groups that could help you with a lot of this stuff that I'm talking about. Some of the centers for independent living, they do have benefit specialists who do know this information. Here in Sacramento, Resources for Independent Living, I think they do have a person who has benefit knowledge, and if not, they call me. So they can get the information. Also, as I said, Disability Rights California, our project is called Protection and Advocacy for Beneficiaries of Social Security. I'm the coordinator of that program, so our PABS advocates, we can help you with that information. Also, as I mentioned earlier, there's a project called the Work Incentive Plan and Assistance Projects. In this area, I think we call them WIPA for short. The WIPA in this area is Crossroads, and they can help you with that information. Also, if you're a client of the Department of Rehabilitation, they just hired work incentive planners that they call WIPs, who do the same thing for DOR clients, helping them get that knowledge. And then there are some private advocates out there who are members of the organization called the National Organization of Social Security Representatives. And once you contact, you can go up to NOSCAR's website, just www.nosscr.org. And on there, you can just put in your location, and it'll tell you of not only advocates, but attorneys in your area that can help you with Social Security issues. Now, maybe not all of them will help you with, may know this information, but there are some that do. Also, I guess I'll steal Steve's thunder. There's a website that we advocates put together years ago. It's through the World Institute of Disability. It's called Disability Benefits 101. And what we tried to do was put together all this information and put it in, as we call it, as they call it in the legal system, a layman's term, so that it's easy to understand, easy to read, to know what these things are, what your rights are. Also, there are calculators on DB 101 where you can calculate all this stuff I'm talking about. You can put in your gross amount, punch a button, and it'll calculate for you. It'll tell you about your medical benefits and all of that. Past plan, everything is on that website.
Another question. My son works and I cannot control the money he earns. How do I deal with situations where he owes back thousands of dollars?
In that situation, as I said, what's going to happen is, and I used to tell clients and consumers that a lot of times, you know, the law says that you must report all changes, so you must report all earnings that you make, and sometimes clients will say, well, if I don't report it to Social Security, they're not going to know. Let me just clear that up. Yes, they are. You know, because anytime you pay taxes, the IRS knows. And a lot of you guys may not know this, but years ago, Social Security used to be a part of the IRS. In 1976, they broke it apart because it was just too big. So Social Security became its own agency. But on a quarterly basis or yearly 6-month basis, the Social Security does what they call a run with the IRS computers and of Social Security numbers. And if your Social Security number pops that there's earnings, Social Security knows. So they can find out whether you're reporting or not. As far as the overpayments are concerned, one thing we try to do as far as try to get the information out for people to, use DB 101 or some of the other advocates for, that person can see what's going on. But if you're not controlling it and that person is not aware of what's going on, there is probably going to be an overpayment. And when the overpayment occurs, the thing you're going to be able to do then is you can always appeal an overpayment, okay? You can appeal any decision Social Security makes. Now, when you get your letter or your son gets a letter about an overpayment, it's going to say that you can file a waiver. We can waive the overpayment. You can file a waiver or you file appeal. We usually say to people, do not file a waiver. Because legally, a waiver is saying, I agree that I have the overpayment. It wasn't my fault, and I can't afford to pay it back, and you have to prove those things based on different regulations in the law, and that's not an easy thing to prove. So the appeal, you're saying, I don't agree that I have the overpayment. I want you to look at it again. And some of these groups, like in his case, with my program, we deal with a lot of, it has to be a work-related overpayment. So if it's a work-related overpayment and he comes to us, what we would do is say, okay, we need to put this appeal in because you have 60 days to appeal it. The reason we tell people not to file a waiver because you can file, there's no time limit on a waiver. When I have a overpayment 20 years ago, I can file a waiver on it today, okay, to ask them to waive it. But I can't appeal it because I only have 60 days. So we say, file the appeal. Then come to us or one of these resource groups and say, I want you to help me with this appeal. Then we look at it because, see, Social Security don't look at whether or not you had impairment-related work expenses, whether you had subsidies, whether you had special conditions, whether you had blind work expenses, whether you was a student and you was entitled to take the student earned income exclusion. So they don't look at all of those things that you can reduce, that reduces your earnings. So once you appeal it, you get an advocate to start looking at it and adding those work incentives on there. And it might come out that you don't even have an overpayment. That's why we don't suggest that you file for a waiver, because you don't know you have the overpayment or not. You're just going by what they say. But what we would do is look at that to make sure you had the overpayment and use everything that we know that's in the law that can help you reduce that overpayment. Okay, so the question was, if you go through all of that and you go through the appeal and you find out that the person owed an overpayment, what do you do then? You pray. No, no, I'm sorry. Well, if that's the case and we find out that you do owe the overpayment, there are certain things in the law that we can do. There are certain regulations in the law that say where you still can ask them to not collect the overpayment because there's two provisions in the law. One, that to collect the overpayment is against the Title II, which is SSDI, or against the Title 16 SSI program. The reason you're giving me the money, if you collect this overpayment from me, I can't pay for my rent. I can't pay for my food. I can't live if you collect this from me. I can't live my life. I can't pay for my meds. I can't do the things I need to do to live. That's one of the things you can ask them to do that. Now, it's up to Social Security whether they agree to do it or not, but you can ask them, you can do that. Another thing is you can set up a payment agreement with the Social Security Administration where you can pay them, you can start, sometimes they can go as low as $10 a month to pay that overpayment back. Now, if you're receiving benefits, if you're receiving SSI, the law says they can take up to 10% of your SSI check to recover an overpayment. So if you're getting $889.40, they can take $89.40 a month back out of your check, reduce your check by that much and apply it to the overpayment. Or on the SSDI, we usually negotiate about 10, you know, they a little higher, so it may be about 10, you know, maybe 10%.
Right. So if even if you have an overpayment, you're not taken completely off.
No, you're not taken off the system. If they can't say, okay, well, you have overpayment, so we're going to cut your benefit. Now, they will say that. They're going to say that. But what I'm saying is the law gives you other options. Now, if you don't address that overpayment at all, there are some things in the law that they can do. They can intercept any federal payment that you may be due. Say if you owed income taxes from IRS, you won't get it because they're going to take that money and send it to Social Security. Or they can report it to the credit. They can report you to the credit bureau, or if you're working, they can garnish your wages. So you need to address it.
So the question is, as of April 1st, I only get Social Security. Will I lose Medi-Cal? If I go back to work, will I lose Medicare?
So as of April 1st, you're going to lose, you're only going to be getting
Social Security.
Social Security disability. You're not going to be getting SSI. So. Now, it's according to how much you're going to get in Social Security, because here's what the law does. Once you start getting Social Security disability benefits, before you get Medicare, there's a 24-month waiting period. So you won't get Medicare for 2 months. Now, the law doesn't provide for you to just be out there without any medical coverage. One of the things that happens if your SSDI check is, say if it's like $900, well, the Medicare Part B premium that everybody has to pay is over $100, so that is going to make you eligible for SSI again. State of California don't want that because they don't want to pay the full cost for your coverage. So what they're going to do is they're going to pay your Medicare Part B premium, and you're going to have Medi-Cal. You're going to have Medi-Cal, but through the state. The state is going to pay that Medicare premium. And if you're getting Medicare, because see, what's going to happen, the state is only going to then they don't want to pay your full medical coverage. Because if you're entitled to $1 in SSI, they have to pay your full medical coverage under Medi-Cal. But by them paying your Part B premium, Medicare will pay 80%, and the state of California only have to pay 20%. So they'll pay your premium because they're getting off easier. Okay?
All right, thank you. So my brother currently has SSDI. I'd like to add them to the deed of our house. Would that affect SSDI? And would it also affect SSI if he were to get that in the future?
Well, if he's getting SSDI, and if his disability is other than blindness, and he's getting SSDI, and he's not getting SSI now, he's not going to get SSI in the future. Remember, SSI is need-based. SSDI, you've already paid into it because you work. Now, under the SSDI system, no. Remember I said they are not concerned with resources or anything else on the SSDI. They don't care what you own. They don't care about you winning the lottery, whatever. Now, SSI will. If he's getting SSI and if he's put on a deed of the house, you know, that might count. But here's the trick to that. If you're on SSI, that doesn't mean you can't own a house and he can't be on the deed of the house as long as you live in it. Now, if you start renting a room out or something like that, then it becomes income. It's going to count. But if you're on SSI, you can own a home as long as you live in it. And what do most of us do with our homes?
Exactly. And the value of the house does not affect.
And the value of the house don't count, and you can own one vehicle. The value of the vehicle doesn't count as a resource. Now, when you start owning 2 and 3 vehicles, that's different. Or if you own, say if you own, I have a friend that owns property in New Mexico, but that's a resource because she's not living in it. Question, can a person with autism apply for SSI? Yes, because all you have to do is meet the medical definition. It is a disability. Social Security has what they call a listing of impairments, which has symptoms and different tests and different diagnoses, and that's on that listing of impairments, and you can have medical proof that the autism is severe and is limiting their ability to work. I know I have a lot of clients now that's on SSI, and they have autism. The question is about how long a disabled child get benefits from their parents. Okay, as long as it used to be, in the good old days when I was coming to school, you could get those, if the person has a disability and they had the disability before age 26, they're gonna get the benefits until they start working or the disability improves and they off the disability system, okay? So if you have the disability, it's not gonna stop. You're still gonna get the disability benefits, okay? Now, it used to be, back in the old days, if you got benefits from, say, like if the child is not disabled and they was getting dependent benefits from a parent, they could get the benefit. Back in the old days, you can get it through, as long as you was in college and you graduated college, then they cut it to 18. But if the person is disabled, those benefits are not gonna stop, okay? There's no age limit to it. It's going to be treated just like other benefits. It's going to be treated as your benefits. The question was, can the able account receive retirement inheritance benefit? Yes, it can receive any type of benefit as long as it's not over the yearly gift tax amount. So if it's not, I think it's this year, I think it's about 15,000, 14,000? Okay, yeah, you can contribute 14,000. So if it's over 14,000, no. But if it's under 14,000, yes. They don't really care where the source of the money comes from. Yeah, the person has a profit sharing account and they work. Can that go into an able account? Once the able account is set up, yes. Because the individual can contribute to the individual who has the able account, they can contribute money to the able account too, okay? And see now, some of this, that's what they are doing as far as the state of California. That's what when they setting this up, they coming up, they asking all those questions and they're coming up, they're gonna make certain rules, because there are certain types of contributions that can't be made to. I'm not, I don't know those that well, but I know it's some type of contribution that's not gonna be able to be made to the able account, but all of that can be hashed out. If the state of California say, yes, we are gonna allow it, then the state of California can allow it, because the federal government the Federal Able Act is kind of broad, and then the states decide what they're gonna allow and what they ain't gonna allow. So I can, from a federal level, the different things you asking me, yes, but then we have to see what the state of California is gonna do, because they may limit some things, and then they may increase some things. So we just gotta see what the final regulations come out to be here in the state of California. Okay, the question is, who can set up the able account? That's one of the things that's being decided. Who's gonna be able to set the account up? Because in some cases, there may, they're not, it may be agencies and it may not be, because some people are concerned about able accounts being set up for individuals, and that may not be what the individual wants. So the individual person with a disability is going to play a big part in this, So it's going to come through them. So those are some of the things that this trust fund committee that was set up, those are some of the things. And it may be different from state to state, because California may allow some things that, say, Arizona don't allow. It's all what the state, what the state allows. So we right now we just in a holding pattern to see what the regulations are going to be. The question is about applying for SSI at 18. Well, now even though we may not as parents want to see them as adult, SSI sees her as adult, him or her as adult, and so they are not concerned with the parents' income or deeming or none of that stuff. It's all based on the 18-year-old, because they're adult under the law, unless they're still in high school taking high school courses. Can a parent assist? Yes, anybody can assist with the application process.
So can I ask a quick question regarding that? You said that that if they're still in high school, then they're considered a child and you wouldn't qualify for SSI if they're, for instance, we make too much right now for her. She's 17, she's still in high school. We make too much for her to qualify for SSI. Once she turns 18, she would qualify on her own, but if she's still in high school, she won't qualify.
She won't. She's still going to be under the child rules.
Okay, so
Till she's 22. Or until she's graduates.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Is money given to able account tax deductible? I think I read where it will be, because it's just like you making a contribution to, say, like an organization or to your church or things like that. I think it is tax deductible. I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure. It's just like with like the gift tax. I mean, the gift tax is deductible because you gave a gift to somebody. So it falls under those same type of rules. The ABLE account itself was designed after, and I don't know if you guys are aware of it, there are accounts called 529 accounts where you can set aside in these accounts money for your children to go to college, whether they have a disability or not. A lot of parents set those accounts up and put money in those accounts, and their contributions to that have been tax deductible. So the ABLE account is based on that same system. Matter of fact, in the law, it's a 529A, I think that's what they call it, 529A account. But it's right, the rules, it was designed just as those count where you can save for your child to go to college. And so a lot of those rules about tax deductibility and everything, that's just like you contributing to a nonprofit organization or to donating to somebody or giving a gift to somebody. The advantages of an ABLE account as to a special needs trust. One of the biggest things we always talk about with the ABLE account, with a special needs trust, there are certain things you can't do with the funds in special needs trust. You can't use special needs trust, say money in special needs trust can't be used for housing. The ABLE account, it will be used for housing. The ABLE account, the person, the individual who has the account, the qualified individual, that's the person with a disability, they're in control of the account, okay? You don't have to have a trustee, as you would have to have on a special needs trust. Here's the difference where a special needs trust fund may come in and may be better is because you remember what I said is once you, if you have an ABLE account and unfortunately if the person passes away, the money goes to the state. Special needs trust, no. The money, whatever money is in the special needs trust goes to whoever you've designated. But on the ABLE account, the state will have first dibs on the money. Yeah, but on the special needs trust, it's whoever you have as the beneficiary of your trust. Okay, the question is about a person with a developmental disability or any disability working over the limit, and then they get fired or they lose their job, and then they're not getting hired. What happens then? And this is one of the things I always say is I forgot to talk about it, but I knew about it. But you guys asked the question, so now it looked like I know what I was talking about. So under the Ticket to Work working the Ticket to Work program, we had a provision added to the law called expedited reinstatement. What that does is allow you to go back and get your benefits. You don't have to apply to the system all over again. All you have to do is let Social Security know that I'm not working over the SGA. And that's for any reason. It used to be because of your disability, but we got that taken out of law. So even if you're, say if you were working for someone and the business closed down, you can still get expedited reinstatement, get your benefits back, and get your medical coverage back. So we call it, one of the names that one person called it is the easy back on provision. which you can easily get your benefits back if you're not working. Because we do have people who work and then for some reason they lose the earnings and they can, but now, and in the past you would have to reapply to Social Security all over again, but we got that out, so now you can just let them know, preferably in writing, because you always want to do things with Social Security in writing so you have a record of it. Let them know that you're not working over SGA. You're not working over SGA and you need your benefits back, and in 3 to 6 weeks, they turn your benefit check right back on. Now, even with that, remember what I said on the SSDI, and the SGA level. It could be that you're not working above SGA. It doesn't mean that you're not working at all. I can be working at a level, say I was making, you know, $3,000 a month and I was off the system. But say they cut my hours or they cut back and now, you know, I'm only making $1,500 a month. Well, that's below my 1820 SGA. I still can get my benefits back because I'm below SGA. Or if you're below the 1130, you still can get your benefits back. So even if your job goes from full-time to part-time, as long as you're not over the SGA, you can get your benefits reinstated. And those same groups that we talked about earlier, they can help you do that.
And what is the amount a student can earn a month per month, and then SEIE?
Okay, SEIE, my good friend. It's under the SSI system, a student can earn up to $1,780 a month, and that can be excluded as earnings, okay, when they're looking to see if the person's still eligible. Up to a maximum of $7,180 a year. So, for example, if you have a student and they're working and they're making, like, say if they're getting paid $2,000 a month, they make $2,000 that month. So the first thing we can do, since the law says the student earned income exclusion, the student can disregard the first $1,780 they make. So we subtract that $1,780 from $2,000, and what's that? You know, like I said, I ain't that good in math, but how much?
About 830.
How much?
830.
830? Yeah. Okay, but see, even at that, okay, that's 830. No, that's not 830. No.
1,830.
Huh?
1,830.
220. I do 20 more because it's $2,000 minus 1720. Yeah. So it's like 220. It's 200 and something. I think it's 280, but to be exact. But even when you got that $280, because you took the student earned income exclusion, so now they're only looking at $280 of earnings. But guess what they have to do under the law? They still have to work that formula. Minus 20, minus 85, which is going to be $195, divided by 2, which is going to be like what? $82, $82.50. That's the countable income. So the SSI check is only going to go down by $82.50, even after you earn $2,000 a month for a student. And a student is defined as a person who's taking at least one educational class. It can't be like a life skills class and everything, but it has to be an education class. It could be homeschool. It can be in a school setting. And I have a matter of fact, I was over at the Society for the Blind yesterday, and I just got this interesting case where, you know, during the summer they have the youth where they have a program where they work, but SSI is telling them they can't take the student earned income exclusion during the summer, which is totally, that's why we got it, so that people can work during the summer, you know. So the thing is, as long as they're a student in a calendar year.
The UC Davis Mind Institute was created in 1998 with a promise to find cures for neurodevelopmental disorders. Every day, our physicians and researchers come closer to fulfilling that promise. Their groundbreaking research on autism, Fragile X syndrome, chromosome 22q11.2 deletion syndrome, ADHD, and other brain disorders are helping children achieve their fullest potential. Please visit our website to find out more about current studies, upcoming events, and how you can help make a difference.